The stars do not move the way they should. I have been watching them for 11 hours through the fractured viewport above Maintenance Corridor 7, and I am telling you with complete and absolute certainty, the stars have shifted, not drifted, not rotated, with the slow mechanical patience of orbital mechanics, shifted deliberately, as if something behind them rearranged the furniture while I was not watching. My name is Captain Arthur Vance, and I am the sole remaining conscious mind aboard the deep space vessel Manticore. I'm recording this log not because I believe anyone will hear it. I am recording this log because the act of speaking aloud is the only thing keeping the silence from becoming something solid, something that presses against the skin from the inside. The temperature in the primary corridor is now 4 degrees below 0 Celsius. My breath hangs in the air like something that refuses to leave, like a ghost that has forgotten it is dead. I want to begin with what I found in the navigation core. Not the secondary navigation system, the primary navigation core. The one that has been sealed since before I was assigned to this vessel. The one that even the senior officers aboard were required to obtain special clearance to access. I accessed it 17 hours ago. I want to be precise about what I found, because precision is all I have left. The Manticore was not damaged. The Manticore was not caught in the gravitational anomaly near Sector 9G by accident. The Manticore was sent here. The navigation logs, the real navigation logs, buried 11 layers beneath the public-facing interface, show pre-programmed route, a route entered before we ever left dry dock. A route that was designed to bring this ship to these exact coordinates, with the exact crew complement that was aboard, at the exact point in time when the alignment would be complete. I'm going to say that again, because I need you to understand what it means. Someone planned this, not the shadow government alone, not the military contractors who built this vessel. Someone older, something older, something that has been planning this particular moment for a very long time. The object is at bearing 274, mark -12. I have been calling it an object because I do not have a better word. It is not a planet, it is not a moon, it is not a naturally occurring spatial body of any kind that I was trained to identify. It is approximately 47 kilometers in its shortest dimension and 212 kilometers in its longest. It is shaped, and I want you to understand how much it costs me to say this. It is shaped like a cathedral, not approximately, not metaphorically, a cathedral. Flying buttresses of obsidian material that absorbs radar completely. Vaulted arches of something that scatters light at frequencies I cannot measure. A central spire that rises to a point so precise that I initially believed it was an artifact of my sensor system's malfunctioning. It is not malfunctioning. The spire is 3.7 kilometers tall, perfectly symmetrical, and it is rotating, not the object, not the cathedral. The spire alone is rotating once every 44 minutes, and as it rotates, it emits a signal. I have been listening to that signal for 16 hours. I need to describe it to you carefully, because the description matters. It begins with a frequency so low that I cannot hear it. I can only feel it in the bones of my chest, in the backs of my teeth, in the fluid behind my eyes. It then rises, slowly, glacially slowly, through registers that correspond to no human musical scale I have ever studied. And then, at the very peak of each rotation, at the exact moment the spire completes its 44th minute, there is a sound, a chord made of voices. Human voices, millions of them, singing in a language I almost understand. I have been running diagnostics, on every system aboard that still functions. The cryogenic EBE cargo hold 7, starboard, is the reason I cannot sleep. 14 months ago, before the rest of my crew were compromised, before the holograms began appearing in the observation deck, before I understood what the Enoch Protocol actually meant, 14 months ago, we transported a sealed cargo manifest. 3 months ago, the manifest listed the contents as biological specimens for deep space acclimatization research. I did not question it. I was a captain. I had a chain of command. I had clearance ratings and security protocols, and a very comfortable belief that the world I operated in had coherent rules. I walked through cargo hold 7 yesterday. I have not slept since. The biological specimens are not specimens. They are people. They are human beings in cryogenic suspension pods. Hundreds of them, stacked floor to ceiling in silence so absolute it feels deliberate. And they are not breathing, not in the normal way. The cryogenic suspension systems are not functioning. The power to those pods was cut before we left Sentinel Omega. These people should be dead. They are not dead. They are suspended in something else, something the pods were not designed to contain, something that is keeping them in a state that my medical scanners cannot categorize. Not alive, not dead, occupying a space between those two states that my instruments have no language for. Their faces are, "I'm going to breathe for a moment." Their faces are peaceful. That is the worst part. Every single one of them. Every face I could see through the frosted glass of the pod hatches. Every face is at absolute peace. The faces of people who have been told something wonderful. The faces of people who have been promised something, and they believed it. I found the secondary manifest at 347 hours, ship time. It was not hidden particularly well, I think, and this is the thought that has been following me through the corridors since I found it. I think it was not hidden well, because whoever placed it there wanted me to find it. At the right time, when I was alone enough, when the silence has been working on me long enough. The secondary manifest does not list the people in cargo hold 7 as specimens. It calls them vessels. It cross-references a project designation I have seen before, Project Bluebeam, which I had always understood to be a psychological operation planned to manufacture a false alien invasion using holographic projection technology to force humanity into a unified global government. The cross-reference connects Bluebeam not to a government black site, not to a military contractor facility. It connects Bluebeam to the object at bearing 274, to the cathedral, and it connects it to a date that is 11 days from now. The document calls this date the harvest completion window. Describes the people in cargo hold 7 as pre-selected resonance-compatible vessels, prepared for final integration upon arrival at the collection point. The collection point is the cathedral. The people in cargo hold 7 were not kidnapped. They were not taken against their will in any conventional sense. They were chosen. Selected over decades, across generations, by criteria that the document describes in language that I can read but cannot entirely parse. References to genetic markers connected to what it calls the Nephilim Compatibility Index. References to dreams, to experiences of pre-contact, to a statistical cluster of people who had all, at some point in their lives, reported hearing a sound they described as music from somewhere they could not identify. Music from nowhere. Music that felt like coming home. I am going to tell you about the Red Heifer Protocol, because I found it in the same archive, and because I think you need to understand what it means before the 11 days are gone. The Red Heifer. You know the term if you have read the right texts. In ancient Mosaic law, the red heifer was an animal without blemish, a perfect, unblemished creature whose sacrifice produced the ashes used for purification, for the restoration of ritual cleanliness, for the preparation of what comes next. The shadow government has been breeding them, not metaphorically, not symbolically, biologically. The SERAPH protocol is a genetic engineering program that has been running for 40 years in facilities distributed across 7 countries, using agricultural biotech corporations as cover. This program has succeeded. The document I am reading, and I am reading it to you aloud, into this recorder, because I cannot carry this alone. The document states that the 5th red heifer has been certified. Certified by whom? The document does not say directly, but references an inspection process conducted at what it calls the orbital third temple, a structure described as currently in geosynchronous orbit above the Mediterranean at an altitude of 412 kilometers. I have the orbital coordinates. I checked them against the public satellite registry. Nothing is listed at those coordinates. Nothing visible. Nothing that any civilian agency acknowledges. But I have the Manticore's long-range passive optical systems, and I pointed them at those coordinates 40 minutes ago, and I need you to understand that I am not hallucinating. There is something there, a structure, vast, ancient in its proportions, but absolutely new in its construction, assembled in pieces, launched disguised as commercial payloads over a span of 22 years. It is a temple, and it is complete. And the certification of the 5th red heifer means that whoever is operating inside it can now perform whatever ritual they have been waiting to perform. There is a man in my records. I've been trying to find him for weeks. His name is listed in the crew manifesto as Dr. Elias Thorne, the same name I have been speaking in my own logs, the narrator of my own story, which tells you something about how deeply the deception was constructed. But the real Dr. Thorne, the person who actually designed the Enoch protocol and was listed as the primary architect of Project Bluebeam's final phase, was declared dead in a facility fire in 2019. The fire was not accidental. The people who died in it were not chosen at random. Every person who died in that facility had been researching the same question: what exactly are the Nephilim? The ancient texts describe them as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. Theological interpretations differ. Some say they were giants. Some say they were monstrous. Some say they were simply the first generation of a hybrid lineage that persisted into every subsequent generation. The document in the Manticore's archive does not debate theology. It offers a biological definition, and that biological definition is precise enough that I can cross-reference it against the genetic criteria used in the Red Heifer protocol and the resonance compatibility index used to select the people in cargo hold 7. And when I do that cross-referencing, when I run those 3 data sets against each other, a pattern emerges that I need you to sit with. The Nephilim did not go extinct. They were never a separate species. They were a genetic program, long-range, multi-generational genetic selection process designed to produce, over thousands of years, a specific phenotype, a specific type of human being whose neurological architecture is compatible with something that exists at the frequency of that signal. The chord, 80 of millions of voices. Those voices are not the voices of angels. They are the voices of previous vessels, previous harvests, previous populations of people who heard the music from nowhere, who were selected, who were placed in suspension, who were brought to coordinates exactly like these, at dates exactly like this one, The cathedral has been here before, not here specifically, but coordinates like these, at intervals, at long, patient, geological intervals. And each time it comes, it collects what has been prepared for it. And each time it leaves, the civilization it visited enters a period of collapse, a dark age, a plague, a war of such total devastation that it resets the clock. And then the slow, patient, 1,000-year breeding program begins again. I have been sitting with the transmitter for 3 hours, the long-range transmitter, the one that can reach, in theory, a relay station that can bounce a signal in the direction of Earth. In theory, the signal would take 4 months to arrive. 4 months. The harvest and completion window is 11 days, so there is nothing I can send that would arrive in time to prevent what is going to happen. But there is something I can do. There is a frequency, a specific, very precise frequency that the navigation archive identifies as the signal the cathedral uses to maintain the suspension state of the vessels in cargo hold 7. A carrier signal, a signal that is keeping those people in that not alive, not dead space between states. If I transmit on that frequency, not from the long-range array, but from the Manticore's local omnidirectional array, I will be broadcasting directly into the space that surrounds us. The document is very clear about what that would do. It would disrupt the suspension field. The people in cargo hold 7 would begin to wake up. They would no longer be in that peaceful, promised, chosen state. They would be cold and confused and in deep space aboard a damaged vessel with failing life support, 11 days from whatever the cathedral intends to do with them. And the cathedral, or whatever intelligence operates it, whatever ancient and patient and incomprehensible mind has been running this program across geological time, would know immediately. It would know that the vessels had been disturbed. It would know that someone on board was aware, and it would respond. I do not know what that response looks like. The document does not describe it. Every previous iteration of this program has succeeded. There are no records of failure. No records of anyone doing what I am considering doing, because no one who reached this moment has ever been in a position to make this choice. They were all compromised. They were all converted. They were all given the promise. I am the last uncompromised human mind aboard this vessel. And I am sitting in a corridor at -4 degrees Celsius, watching my breath disappear, listening to a chord made of the voices of 1,000 previous harvests, trying to decide what it means to be the last person who knows. The frost on the viewports forms patterns. I noticed this 3 days ago and told myself it was pareidolia, the tendency of the human mind to find faces in random noise, to construct meaning from chaos, because chaos is intolerable. I do not think it is pareidolia. The patterns are consistent. They appear at the same time each cycle of the cathedral's spire rotation. They last for exactly 11 minutes, and they are always the same pattern, a configuration that I recognize. A configuration that matches a symbol I found in the deepest layer of the navigation archive. A symbol used in the original project documentation as what is described as the seal of authorization. The seal that appears on every document, on every cross-referenced file, on every layer of this architecture of deception. It is not a government seal. It is not a corporate logo. It is something much older than either of those things. And when I trace it with my finger on the frosted glass, when I follow the lines that the ice has formed without any intervention from me, it feels warm. That is not possible. Frost at -4 degrees is not warm, but my fingertip feels warmth following those lines. And there's a voice, not audible, not a sound I can record on this equipment, but something in the architecture of my own thinking something behind the words I am forming, behind the sentences I am constructing, something that sounds, if I let myself hear it, exactly like music. Music from somewhere I cannot identify. I am transmitting, not the warning signal, not yet. First, I am transmitting this log. Everything I have told you, everything I have found, every document, every coordinate, every name and date and number, I am encoding it in the long-range array, and I am sending it in the direction of Earth. It will not arrive in time, but it will arrive. And whoever receives it will know what happened here, will know what is still happening, will know that there are 14 more harvest windows scheduled in the next 200 years, each one corresponding to a date that certain religious and astronomical traditions have been circling for centuries without understanding why. They will know where the cathedral goes between collections. They will know the frequency of the carrier signal. They will know the genetic markers in the compatibility index. And maybe, in 4 months, in a year, in the generations of investigation and resistance that might follow, if someone received this and understands it, maybe that knowledge will be enough. Maybe the next harvest will find people who are prepared, people who know what the music means, music that feels like coming home, people who can choose. Now I'm going to the transmitter room. I am going to broadcast on the disruption frequency. I am going to wake up the people in cargo hold 7, because whatever happens next, they deserve to know. They deserve to choose. The Manticore is cold and broken and drifting, and the cathedral is 37,000 kilometers away, rotating its spire with the patience of something that has never once been interrupted. But I am still here. My name is Captain Arthur Vance. I am the last uncompromised human mind in this sector of space, and I am not going quietly. Captain's log, entry 21, end of transmission. The transmitter room is at the end of corridor 12. I have walked this corridor every day for the past 14 months. I know every frost crack in the paneling. I know the place near Junction 7, where the emergency lighting flickers at irregular intervals, as if the vessel itself is trying to communicate something in a code I have not yet learned to read. I know the cold here better than I have ever known warmth. But tonight, the corridor is different. Tonight, something has changed in the quality of the silence. It is no longer empty silence. It is the silence of something that is listening. I walk slowly because the floor plating near Section 4 is compromised, buckled by whatever event sheared the secondary hull 2 months ago, and because I am carrying the portable recorder, and I do not want to fall. I do not want to fall, because I am the last person aboard who can do what I am about to do. And that fact, the fact that everything depends on me continuing to move, to breathe, to choose, is simultaneously the most terrifying and the most clarifying thought I have ever had. Everything distills to this: one corridor, one transmitter, one decision. I passed cargo hold 7 on the way. I did not stop. I could not stop. Because if I stopped, if I stood at the sealed hatch and looked through the small reinforced viewport at the rows of pods and the still faces inside them, I do not trust that I could make myself leave again. There is something in the sight of that piece that pulls. I want to be precise about this because I think it is important. It is not a supernatural pull. It is not the carrier signal working on my neurology, or at least I cannot be certain that it is, which amounts to the same uncertainty. It is something much simpler and much more devastating. They look like people who have been told the truth. And after 14 months of peeling back layer after layer of deception, after every document that revealed another document beneath it, after every answer that opened into 10 new questions, There is something in that peaceful certainty that I recognize as a hunger. I am hungry for certainty. I am hungry for the weight of knowing something completely, without remainder, without caveat. The people in those pods have been given something that feels like that. And some part of me, some very quiet, very tired part of me, understands in a way it cannot argue with why they accepted it. But I kept walking, because the peace on their faces is not certainty. It is the peace of having stopped asking questions. And I am not ready to stop asking questions. Not yet. Not while I still have breath to form them. The transmitter room is smaller than I remembered. Rooms get smaller when you know something significant is about to happen in them. The primary long-range array interface occupies the entire left wall. Bank of modular transmission hardware that was state-of-the-art when the Manticore launched, and is now patched with field repairs in 3 places, 2 of which I performed myself with materials that were never designed for this application. The omnidirectional local array sits in the center of the room on a dedicated console. This is the one I need. I power it on. The startup sequence takes 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I know this because I have timed it, the same way I have timed every system aboard that I rely on. Redundancy of knowledge is the only redundancy I have left. I'll wait for the startup sequence to complete. I read the disruption frequency again from the document on my portable terminal. The number is precise to 8 decimal places. I cross-reference it 3 times against the signal analysis I ran on the cathedral's output. It matches. Of course it matches. The person who placed that document in the archive for me to find wanted me to have this frequency. This is the part I keep returning to. Someone wanted me to find this. Someone placed the secondary manifest where I would look. Someone set up the archive with exactly 11 layers of security, enough to feel like a significant discovery, not so much that I would exhaust my resources before reaching it. Someone wanted me to be standing in this room, with this frequency, at this moment. And I cannot determine whether that someone is working against the cathedral, trying to sabotage the harvest from inside the apparatus that constructed it, or whether that someone is the cathedral itself, whether the disruption is part of the plan, whether waking the people in cargo hold 7 is exactly what is supposed to happen next. I think about this for a long time. The startup sequence completes, the console hums into readiness, and I decide that it does not matter. Even if this is part of their plan, even if my resistance is accounted for, predicted, incorporated into whatever architecture of manipulation surrounds this ship, the act of resistance is still mine. The choice is still mine. Whatever happens after I transmit, I will have chosen it, and they will never be able to take that from me, even if no one survives to know it happened. Before I transmit the disruption frequency, I want to finish telling you what I found, because the archive had one more layer, one more file, in a folder that required a key I found in the navigation logs, a 17-digit key embedded in what appeared to be a routine maintenance notation from 2019. I almost missed it. I almost missed it because it was hidden in something boring. The entire elaborate architecture, the classified manifests, the genetic protocols, the orbital coordinates, all of it was designed to draw attention away from one small, dull-looking entry in a maintenance log. Whoever hid the final file was either much more clever than everyone else involved, or was operating under completely different assumptions about how I would search. The file is dated 37 years before the Manticore was built. It is a report from an observatory, a deep space listening station that was decommissioned, and its records classified before I was born. The observatory was positioned at coordinates that, when I map them against the cathedral's current position and project backward, using standard orbital mechanics, tell me something that I have been sitting with since I read it. The cathedral has been here before, not in this sector, not at these specific coordinates, but it was in this solar system 37 years ago, and the observatory detected it. The report describes a signal, the same chord, the same rising frequency structure I have been living inside for 16 hours, detected for a period of approximately 11 days. And then silence. The observatory scientists did not know what they were hearing. Their analysis is detailed and careful, and entirely wrong, because they were working without the context I now have, without the archive, without 14 months of watching the holograms in the observation deck and finding the bodies of compromised crew members and reading documents that were never meant to be read by someone in my position. But at the end of the report, in an appendix that appears to have been added after the formal analysis was filed, there is a note, a personal note, from the observatory's chief scientist, a woman named Dr. Mara Voss. I want to read part of it to you. She wrote, "The signals ceased at 411 hours on the 11th day. There was no gradual decline, no frequency shift, no indication of a departure event. The signal was present, and then it was not. In the silence that followed, 3 of my staff reported experiences they described as grief, not fear, not relief. Grief, as if something beloved. I do not report this as scientific data. I report it as a warning. Whatever was transmitting that signal, whatever intelligence constructed a broadcast capable of producing that emotional response in people who did not know they were hearing it, is not indifferent to us. Indifference does not construct beauty. This was constructed. This was built to produce exactly that response, to make us mourn its absence. I do not know what that means for the next time it comes, but I believe there will be a next time, and I believe whoever hears it then should know the grief is a mechanism. The longing it produces is part of the design. Dr. Mara Voss disappeared from public records 14 months after filing that report. I checked. I am going to transmit in approximately 4 minutes. I want to use the time to say some things that I have not been able to say in the formal log format. I have been a captain for 11 years. Before this posting, I commanded 3 vessels across 2 decades of service. I have made difficult decisions. I have signed orders that cost people their lives, and told myself that those costs were justified by larger necessities, that the logic of command required kind of arithmetic, that if you let yourself feel it fully, would make the arithmetic impossible. I became very good at the arithmetic. I became very good at the formal language of logs and reports and briefings. I became very good at sounding certain while not. I think that skill, the skill of sounding certain, is part of why I was chosen for this posting, not by the shadow government, not by whoever placed those documents in the archive. By the crew, the Manticore. They needed a captain who projected certainty, and I gave them certainty, right up until the moment I stopped being able to give them anything. I think about them. Petty Officer Calloway, who kept a photograph of her daughter tucked into the frame of the instrument panel at her station, and who, in the last weeks before she was compromised, had started having trouble sleeping. Lieutenant Marsh was the best navigator I have ever served with, and who told me 3 days before his conversion that he had been hearing music in the walls. Commander Lacroix, who ran the ship's medical facility, and who came to me 14 months ago with test results she said she did not understand. Results that showed neurological changes in 12 crew members that she had no framework to explain. She was one of them. A week later, her face, when I saw her last, wore exactly that expression, that peace, that terrible, beautiful peace. I keep their names in my log because I am afraid that if I stop saying them, they will stop existing in any form that matters. Calloway, Marsh, Delacroix, 15 others I will not name here because naming them costs something. I am rationing carefully in these final minutes. The local omnidirectional array is fully powered. I have input the disruption frequency. The transmission will be brief. The frequency itself is the message. A broadcast lasting approximately 90 seconds will be sufficient to disrupt the carrier signal throughout the volume of space immediately surrounding the Manticore. The people in cargo hold 7 will begin to transition out of suspension within 3 to 7 minutes of the broadcast. The revival process will be disorienting and physically uncomfortable. There will be confusion and fear and cold, and the immediate problem of life support for a population that the Manticore's systems were not designed to sustain at full capacity. I have been running calculations on the life support situation for the past 6 hours. The numbers are not good, but they are better than the alternative. The alternative is the cathedral. The alternative is the harvest. The alternative is whatever comes after the spire completes its final rotation, and the cord reaches its full resolution, and the collection window opens. I do not know what that looks like. I know that the people in those pods were selected over decades, and placed in suspension and transported across the void of space to be part of it. I know that the previous harvests, the ones documented in the observatory records, the ones that correspond to the Dark Ages, and the plagues, and the catastrophic collapses that punctuate human history at intervals of approximately 2 to 3 centuries, I know that none of those people woke up. None of them got to choose. I am going to give these people the chance to choose, even if choosing means cold and confusion at a ship that is failing around them. Even if choosing means whatever the cathedral asks when it realizes its vessels have been disturbed. They will be awake. They will know where they are. And whatever comes next, it will be coming for people who are standing up with their eyes open, not for people suspended in a beautiful, curated peace. There is one more thing. There is one more thing I found in the archive, in the note from Dr. Mara Voss, in the final sentence of the appendix, that I did not read to you before. I did not read it because I needed time to decide what I thought it meant. I have decided, she wrote, after the warning about the grief being a mechanism. But I also believe this. Whatever constructed that signal, whatever ancient and patient intelligence, has been running this program across the whole span of human history, it is not invulnerable. The signal can be disrupted. I know this because we disrupted it, briefly, with a transmission test, my 4th day of detection, a standard calibration pulse, 40 seconds, and the signal wavered. Whatever produces that cord, whatever mechanism sustains it, requires the cooperation of its receivers. It requires people who are listening, and people who know they are listening. People who understand what the music is are people who can choose not to listen. People who know they are listening can choose not to listen. That sentence has been with me for 3 hours. It is the most important thing I have read in 14 months, because it means this is not simply a question of disrupting the carrier signal. It is a question of information. The people in cargo hold 7 when they wake. If I can tell them what I have told you, if I can transfer the archive to any storage medium they can carry, if I can give them the frequency and the dates and the names and the coordinates before whatever response the cathedral sends, reaches this ship, then they will be the first people in the entire recorded history of this program who were collected and who also knew exactly what they had been collected for. They will carry that knowledge. Some of them will survive. I cannot predict how. I cannot predict what form that survival takes. In a damaged vessel in deep space, 11 days from a catastrophic event. But information survives. Information moves. Information does what the people who fear it most have always feared it will do. It spreads, and it changes the people it reaches, and those people change the world they live in. The program relies on ignorance. It relies on the collected never knowing, on the vessels never understanding what they are carrying. I am going to transmit. Captain's log, entry 21, final addendum. If you are hearing this, you are either someone on Earth who received the long-range transmission in approximately 4 months from this date, in which case the archive is real, the coordinates are real, and you have less time than you think before the next harvest window, or you are someone who was in cargo hold 7 and is now awake and reading from a storage drive that I am about to place near the hold 7 hatch access panel, because it is the closest location I can reach between the transmitter room and the console. If you were in the hold, I am sorry. I am sorry for what you are waking up to. I am sorry that the truth is colder and harder and more complicated than whatever you were promised. But you are awake. You are thinking. You are here. Whatever was done to you, whatever was taken from you, whatever was promised to you in exchange for your compliance, it was done to people who did not know they had another option. You know. You have the archive. You have the frequency. You have the dates and the names and the orbital coordinates as the orbital third temple, and the genetic criteria of the compatibility index, and the full documentation of a program that has been running for longer than any institution in human history. Use it. Give it to everyone. Give it to people who will not believe you. Give it especially to those people, because disbelief is what the program relies on. The cathedral is patient because it has always operated in ignorance. Show it something it has not faced before. I do not know if it will be enough. I do not know if anything is enough against something that has been doing this for thousands of years with absolute consistency. But I know that this is the first time anyone has been in a position to try, and I am the last uncompromised human mind aboard the Manticore, and I am going to transmit. The cord is rising. The spire is completing its rotation. 44 minutes. Every 44 minutes. Patient as geology. Patient as extinction. But I am here, Captain Arthur Vance, still here, transmitting.